The Cure of the Heart. In a world still reeling from the smoke of revolution, a young man named Jean-Marie felt a quiet pull toward something greater than the fields of his family farm. While others dreamt of glory in battle or wealth in the cities, he found himself staring at the horizon, wondering how a person could truly mend a broken world. He didn't have much, just a sturdy pair of boots and a heart that felt every sorrow of his neighbors. He knew his path would lead to the priesthood, though the road ahead looked steep and unforgiving. The dream met a harsh reality in the halls of the seminary. Jean-Marie found himself surrounded by books written in a language he could barely decode. Latin was a wall he couldn't climb, and the complex philosophies of the classroom felt like a fog. While his classmates breezed through their exams, Jean-Marie sat late into the night, his head in his hands. The professors whispered that he was too slow and lacking the intellect for the cassock. He felt like a failure before he had even begun. Just when Jean-Marie was ready to pack his bags, a mentor named Vianney stepped in. Vianney saw something the professors missed, a depth of soul that no exam could measure. He spent hours sitting with Jean-Marie, breaking down the difficult lessons into simple truths. Vianney didn't just teach him grammar. He taught him that a priest's greatest tool wasn't a clever tongue, but a listening heart. Together, they chipped away at the wall of doubt that Jean-Marie had built around himself. Against all odds, Jean-Marie was ordained. His first assignment was a place no one else wanted, a tiny, desolate village called Ars. As he walked the dusty road toward the town, the wind bit through his thin cloak. Ars was a place where faith had gone to die, replaced by the clinking of glasses in taverns and a cold indifference to the divine. He arrived not as a conquering hero, but as a humble stranger with nothing but a tattered map and a heavy wooden cross. The welcome he received was as cold as the stone floors of the village church. Gaston, the local mayor, met him in the square with a skeptical squint. To Gaston and the others, Jean-Marie was just another official sent to tell them how to live. They didn't want his prayers, and they certainly didn't want his sermons. They watched from the shadows of the tavern, waiting for this slow priest to realize he didn't belong and leave them to their quiet, weary lives. Jean-Marie didn't argue. Instead, he moved into the drafty rectory and began a life of radical simplicity. He sold his bed and slept on the floor. He ate nothing but cold, boiled potatoes, often days old. He spent his nights in the dark church, praying for the people who mocked him. He believed that if he wanted the village to change, he had to be the first one to give everything away. His physical hunger was nothing compared to the hunger he felt for the souls of Ars. Slowly, the atmosphere began to shift. A villager named Mark, who had spent his life avoiding the church, noticed the light in the windows at 3 a.m. He saw Jean-Marie scrubbing the church floors himself and sharing his meager food with the beggars who passed through. One afternoon, Mark found himself standing at the church door, hesitant. Jean-Marie didn't judge him or lecture him. He simply stepped forward with a smile that felt like the first day of spring. Word began to spread beyond the borders of the village. People whispered about the holy man of Ars who could see straight into a person's heart. Soon, the dusty road was no longer empty. Two women, Eloise and Claire, stood in a line that stretched down the main street. They had traveled for days, leaving behind the noise of the city to find the peace they had heard resided in this tiny town. The taverns grew quiet as the church pews began to groan under the weight of the crowds. The confessional became Jean-Marie's entire world. He sat in the small wooden box for 16 hours a day, listening to the secrets, the sorrows, and the shames of thousands. When Claire finally knelt before him, she didn't find a stern judge. She found a man who wept with her, who understood her struggles because he had faced his own. Jean-Marie realized that his slow mind was his greatest gift. It allowed him to speak the language of the heart, which everyone understood. By the end of his life, Jean-Marie Vianney was no longer the boy who couldn't learn Latin. He was the cure of Ars, a beacon for the entire world. He had turned a forgotten village into a center of hope, not through grand speeches, but through the quiet power of persistence and love. As the sun set over the hills of Ars, he stood one last time at the church door, looking out at the town that had become his heart. He had mended his corner of the world, one soul at a time.